Where do you think the next battle lines will be drawn on the cameras that come after the Z9, the R3 and the A1? G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so very fantastic to see you. In today's opinion piece, I want to talk about CANIKONY. Yes, the three big photographic manufacturers that we have today. And we seem to be coming to a bit of a point in the market. And at the end of 2021, we're going to have the R3, the Z9, and the A1. I want to talk about what I think this all means. And as we get ever so close to the date when the A1, the R3 and the Z9 will be on the market, rumours and excitement are both starting to build. But what is this going to mean for the industry, and what is next for each of the players? CANIKONY is an amazing group, and between them they have created some of the most astounding products that we have ever seen. And really, from what I read behind the scenes, they actually work together more than perhaps most of us realise. But they are still in competition. And for most, it would be considered that Sony are still leading with the A1. But of course, the A1 is not a big-bodied camera. A big-bodied camera that most of us have been around in the industry a long time. These are considered the bulletproof, tank-proof, shot-proof, drop-proof, anywhere-proof, give or take, camera that feels like it's cut from rock. Now, the A1 is technologically absolutely brilliant, but I don't think it's particularly different here from my A7R3. I think it's a little bit larger, but it's the same sort of body. So what is Sony going to do when the R3 and the Z9 drop? Now let's for a minute talk about the R3 and the Z9. The Z9 is clearly Nikon's flagship professional camera. I don't want to deep dive on the specs. There's plenty of videos out there and you can do that. But the most important specs that I think everybody is interested in is we expect the Nikon Z9 to be on par with its peers when it comes to autofocus. Nikon has formally told us that it will be an 8K camera. So we know the sensor has to be of a particular size. And with all the different rumbles and rumours that I've heard, I think it's going to land around the 45 megapixel mark. Latest rumours are that it's going to be 30 frames per second. So these are the most important things. How many megapixels does it have? How fast is the autofocus? And how many frames per second does it shoot? Yes, it'll have 16-bit. Yes, we expect the 8K to work. And thus, this is Nikon's flagship. Now, we expect a Z8 to come along, which might be 60, 70, 80, maybe even 100 megapixels. But that is for a different time. Next, we have the R3, and based on, again, the specifications that we have so far, we believe it's going to be around a 30 megapixel camera, shooting again at 20 or 30 frames per second. It won't shoot 8K, it'll be shooting 4 or maybe 5.9K, something oversampled which can bring it down to a beautiful 4K. So this is not Canon's R1, which we would expect to be coming soon. But if you have the R5 and the R3, you've pretty much got most of your market satiated. So we're going to have the A1, which sits at 50 megapixels. We're going to have the Z9, which I think will be 45, and we're going to have the R3, which will be 30, but there is the R5 if you want to go in that direction, and that is also 45. So all the manufacturers are pretty much going to be covering the top end, the high end, one way or another. Now, we know these cameras are close. Peter McKinnon recently said in a video when he was talking about the R3 specs, he was going through what he knew, what he'd picked up, and ultimately I just saw this whole video as an opportunity for him to tell us strategically at the end that he expects to have a copy of the camera in his hand within the month. And that was a week ago. So we are going to see Peter McKinnon testing out the R3 perhaps in August. And then another great channel, Seth from Adorama. He's got his own channel as well. Check it out here. There's the link. He has talked about the fact that he is under non-disclosure agreements, but he has let us know that both the R3 and the Z9 are being tested as we speak. So both of these cameras are very close. So if anybody thinks that the Z9 or the R3 are myths and they're not going to happen, and they want to keep sort of that narrative going, it's simply not true. These cameras are coming. They already exist. McKinnon has told us he's going to have one in his hand, and Nikon have told us they expect to have the Z9 at the Olympics. Even if they don't end up having them at the Olympics due to COVID, they will still be testing these cameras out. So these timelines move along, and ultimately they move along for the end of the year for these cameras being out there in the real world, in real people's hands. Where does Sony go from the A1? Based on their numbering system, it is slightly confusing. The A9 is a top-of-the-range, super fast sports camera. The 7s, well, there's a ton of them. Can't really peg exactly where they sit. And then the 1, which is opposite from the 9, is also a top-of-the-range camera. But at the end of the day, let's face it, the naming schedule is irrelevant. It's just what are they going to do? And I really want to put the question out there, does anybody believe that Sony will create this style of camera? Do you think they'll make a full-bodied, vertical grip incorporated, able to take the larger size batteries, which gives us much longer life, and making it bulletproof, making it weatherproof, dustproof, sandproof, roll over it with a car and it'll still just go, yeah, sorry, what was that? I'm sleeping. Don't bother me right now. Are Sony going to make a camera like that? Now, interestingly, somebody in my comments said, sure, the Z9 will drop and the R3 will drop, and then Sony will come out with a camera that's got 40 frames per second and can shoot 16K video. Now, that sounds okay on paper. It probably sounds great in the marketing department meeting. It might even sound great for people who just want to brag, I bought this camera. But the realities of a camera that shoots 40 frames per second and will have some ridiculous level of resolution, 60 or 80 megapixels, at the end of the day, this becomes a camera that 99.99% of people will never want. And of that 0.001% of people that have it, they are not going to use those features 99% of the time. So then that becomes an extraordinarily niche camera. So this creates a very interesting question for me. When you have the R3, the R5, the Z9, and soon I think the Z8, sometime next year, the A1, the A7R4, the A7 IV, which I think will come soon. Really, I think we live in a world where each camera system is extraordinarily well fleshed out at that point. And I struggle to see what the next big step is for anyone from this conglomerate here to move ahead. I see a time by the end of this year where all these companies are going to be very much on par, and then they will have to move forward on the merit of other things besides marketing specifications. Will there be a trumping of the A1 by Sony? And if so, what will it be? Please let me know in the comments below. But what I think is super important is that we temper what we say in the comments with logic. It's easy to just choose a high number of what things might be. But are they going to be useful, usable, practical, logical? Again, I very quickly go back to the car analogies. You may well buy yourself a Bugatti Veyron that can do 400 kilometers per hour plus. But how often are you ever going to get to use anything getting anywhere near those numbers. And I do think the camera industry is just about to arrive at that point where the numbers that we find in the A1, the R3, the R5, the Z9, the numbers, the specifications with those cameras are going to start to reach the practical limits. And then I think the camera companies need to be more creative, whether they create full frame, say Fuji, who doesn't have it yet, or whether they create medium format, which I think Nikon could do with their Z mount, or whatever next they might do. Sony too could go medium format, as could Canon. They might have to create a new mount. These companies can do whatever they want. I do think we're reaching a natural zenith of where the absolute majority of photographers by far will just simply not need any more. I'd love the brains trust out there to let me know, where do you think the next battle lines will be drawn on the cameras that come after the Z9, the R3 and the A1? Keeping in mind I do believe an R1 will appear as well. But you get the idea of what I'm talking about. More than 30 frames per second? I don't think anybody needs it. More than 30 frames per second at 40 or 50 megapixels? Come on. There's just such a small number of people that need it. And I don't think there's any amount of marketing that would say 40 frames per second at 80 megapixels is required for the majority of us. Thanks for being here for this opinion piece. I would love to know what your thoughts are about all of this. Where is the photography world going to go in 2022 and beyond? And I think the ZFC here is a little bit of an example of it. Don't worry too much about screaming specs. Give us a bit of nostalgia. Give us a bit of tactility. Give us a bit of artistic nurturing. Give us something that's a bit of fun and puts a smile on our face. That's new markets. Already in my comments, I'm seeing people saying, I'm going to give it to my children, I'm going to give it to my wife, I'm going to give it to my husband. And I'm so excited to announce my first wearable merchandise. This is Spreadshirt, which is recommended directly by YouTube, link in the notes below. I've created a few designs, but if you want to get yourself a CANIKONY something, you just type in CANIKONY in the search above, and you will find what you're looking for. Cool caps, cool t-shirts, cool mugs, cool bags, cool all sorts of stuff. Check it out. Another one that I quite like is this design here, which is I'm a bit vintage, which you can also get in hats, t-shirts, aprons, socks, iPhone cases, hoodies, and a whole lot more. If this is your first time here, I'd love to see you again, so please do subscribe, please share, and please like. It's so good for the channel. And of course, do not forget, we're running out of time to be in this year's calendar release, which is the 2022 calendar. If you'd like your name in there, please make your purchase from the website, link below, before July 23rd, which is oh so screamingly close. That would be magnificent. And of course, channel memberships now exist. If you like what you see, we're building a lovely little community within the membership, and I would love you to be a part of it if you see so fit. No pressure. It's all good either way. I love it. I love it all. I'm going to see you real soon. Take it easy, and CANIKONY. It's going to take me even a little while to remember how to say it. CANIKONY. G'day everybody. How you going today? It is so very good to see you. In today's opinion piece, I want to talk about CANIKONY. 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 G'day everybody, how you going today? It is so very fantastic to see you. G'day everybody. G'day everybody, how you going today?